behind a Clockwork LARP. This is a presentation regarding Odysseus, mainly 2024, but most of this stuff was already implemented in 2019 edition of the LARP. So, who am I? My name is Laura Kröger. I was lead producer, narrative designer, and runtime coordinator in Odysseus 2019 and 2024 runs. I have been a LARPer since 2000 and organized LARPs since 2002. I've organized roughly 50 LARPs, and I play project manager in IT in my real life. And few words about Odysseus, which this presentation is about, or how we did things in that LARP. Odysseus is a space drama inspired by Battlestar Galactica. It was played in 2024 and 2019 in Helsinki, Finland. It had 3 runs in both times, 6 in total, and there were 104 players in each run. These were international runs. 5 out of 6 were played in English, and the very first one in 2019 was played in Finnish. The 2024 ticket price was 550 euros, and the LARP was 50 hours of continuous play around the clock. It is a military sci-fi game, and the overarching theme for the LARP is story about survival, and it has been referenced as a clockwork LARP, which is what we are mainly talking about today. So this is in the core of my today's presentation. So how did we run 50 hours of clockwork LARP 6 times in a row successfully? To start off, what do I mean with a clockwork LARP? This is a definition by Markus Montola in the article he wrote about the 2019 Odysseus in KP book a year ago. Clockwork LARP is a LARP where characters work on diverse and sequential interdependent tasks that feed into each other, forming loops that progress the story and the dynamics of the LARP. And here is the content of my today's talk. We are discussing about the core loop of the LARP. What can go wrong when you have a LARP with a tight schedule? What can you do to prevent things going wrong? We are talking about mitigation and course correcting. We're talking about roles, specifically the role of a runtime coordinator, which we had in Odysseus. I have a couple of case examples, our jump sequence, our schedule between the jumps, land missions and boarding. And then at the end, I have 2 video clips from behind the scenes during our 2024 runs. Let's start with the core loop of Odysseus, so the clockwork mechanic we had in the LARP. We had our pilots and bridge officers who were fighting off the enemy attacks. When they were able to jump, the bridge initiated a jump to a safety, and then our engineers performed a jump preparations. Bridge ordered the jump, and the fleet jumped to safety. Once there was a small moment of peace, there were engineers repairing the ship, and then there were medics healing the wounded. In every new jump, or in every other new jump, the players would send land missions to locate new beacons, which they needed to in order to progress the story forward. And once the beacon had found, then the scientists would solve the puzzles inside these beacons to get coordinates in order to do another jump. These coordinates were sent to the bridge, and by that time there was enemy to be fought off, and this loop started from the beginning again. And this loop repeated 18 times during the 50-hour duration of the LARP, and there was a jump roughly every 2 hours and 47 minutes. This was the cool down which the ship had when it was possible to do another safe jump. In some cases during the LARP, they needed to do unsafe jumps in order to get to the safety, and there were a few occasions when they did a double jump. So that's why we got a little bit more jumps than the duration divided by the jump sequence timer. What can go wrong when you have a timed schedule and a lot of moving parts? Well, basically everything. But here are a couple of examples what did go wrong either in 2019 or in 2024. We missed an entire jump due to losing a player into the forest. We had a complete empty epsilon crash, resulting none of the bridge consoles working. Our commanding officers were having a fist fight when they were supposed to order a jump. Players were refusing to commit some of the morally questionable actions they needed to perform in order to move the story forward. Players were focusing on other stuff in time-critical moments when actions were needed to stay on schedule. Engineers were clocking a calibration queue. I will get back what that specifically means in a bit later. Puzzles or tasks were too difficult and our players weren't able to solve them. And our players were being way too suspicious and refusing to follow the intended plot. We had a lot of other small, a little bit more minor inconveniences during the runs, but these were some of the rather big ones. What can you do in order to either prevent or react in these kind of situations? Mitigate is something that you can do beforehand, things you do in order to try to prevent things from going sideways. So think beforehand what can go wrong and what you can do to minimize chances of that happening. Course correcting is when things inevitably do go wrong. These are tools to fix things when, regardless of all the mitigation, things still do go sideways. Make plans how to deal with issues that can't be mitigated, and prepare for something that you didn't think could happening anyways. Here are some of the mitigation we did for Odysseus. We had pre-written characters for each of the 104 characters in the LARP, meaning that we could design the personalities, plots, agendas our characters were having in order that they supported the bigger picture we wanted to, the bigger story we wanted to tell. We could make commanding officers being duty-abiding citizens. We could have certain key roles to be the type of people who would get the things done, what we needed to be done. We had very careful briefings. We were point-blank telling players what we wanted them to do and what we did not want them to do. For example, follow the plot. If you get a distress signal, do help those in need, even if your character might be a bit suspicious, because if you are ignoring the obvious plot points we are giving to you, then you are missing out on the LARP, and in this case, you are putting the entire LARP in jeopardy. We also informed that the jumps need to be executed in timely manner, and this should be a top priority. So in order to keep the loop running, the people who were on the commanding roles in the LARP, they needed to know that this is a top priority for them to do, that no matter what else is going on, they need to make sure that this part of the LARP keeps going on. We had an additional briefings for the officer characters about time management and inclusion, making sure that all the players were able to play the characters and the roles they were assigned to. We had a really good software architecture allowing fixes and alterations done on a fly. We could speed up the engineering calibration. At this stage, I can explain a little bit about our engineering. We had a bunch of manual and digital games which our engineers were solving throughout the LARP. And because players can be really efficient on what they do, if they want to make sure that your ship is going to be fully fixed at all times, we needed to create a little bit of artificial blocks for the players so that they wouldn't be too efficient. So whenever an engineer finished a task, it went into a calibration queue, and there were only a limited amount of slots that allowed these calibrations to happen, meaning that every task would need to go through calibration from some seconds to some minutes. And some of them were pretty long, something like 20 minutes. And if you had 3 20-minute calibrations ongoing, it meant that you could not fix anything during that 20 minutes which those calibrations were going on. This made a barrier so that our players could not just keep fixing the small tasks and then keep the ship fully healed all the time. But this also created the situations when there was very time-critical jump coming, and the players had something like 100 tasks in the calibration queue and only 3 slots for things to be calibrated, meaning that it would take something like 40 minutes for the calibration queue to be cleared, and the players had maybe 15 minutes to live. So we needed to have some tools to speed up the calibration queue in the moments when the players managed to put themselves in the situation where they would not survive otherwise. We could manually set up a location for a battery which was needed to some tasks. It was something that the players needed to travel around the ship, but since there were some connection issues every now and then, if the thing didn't work as it was supposed to, we could manually set it where we wanted it to be, and in that way make it possible for players to keep on doing things they were doing, even if we had some issues with the technology. The same was with the alien artifacts, which we had and which the players played with. They were automated, so the players could use them by pressing buttons or attaching them to systems. But if the players didn't do that, we could manually use them from our own back end to give players a little bit of a push if it was needed. We had a patching windows during the jump. When we originally started to plan how the LARP's sequence would work, we created a window during the jumps, which was something from 8 minutes to 10 or 15 minutes, where everything in the ship was closed down. So all monitors went off during the jumps, meaning that it gave the players a break. So when there had been a very hectic battle just before the jump, the players could take a little bit of a breather during the jump because there was nothing they could do when the jump was going on. But it also allowed us to have a fixing window. For example, when we had the empty epsilon crash, which resulted in none of the bridge consoles working, we could use the jump window to go manually reboot every computer in the bridge, and when the jump ended, everything worked again because we had time to fix it during the jump. We had a jump confirmation by the command center as part of the jump prep, meaning that the players weren't able to go into the wrong direction. They had a specific coordinates they were allowed to jump in each time, and if they entered the wrong coordinates, then we could refuse them from from our systems, and it would give players a warning that coordinates cannot be locked, which was also an off-game cue for the commanding officers, meaning you are going in the wrong direction, guess again. So it was making sure that players can't go in the wrong direction and also giving information to the players if needed. We also had quite a bit of overflow of plots, events and actions, making sure that the players didn't get bored and didn't start inventing stuff that would break our intended design. Regarding course correction, there are a lot of things you cannot prepare, especially if you have a long game, if you have a lot of moving parts. The things we did in order to do some course correcting during the runtime when something unexpected happened. We had a very clear chain of command for any on-spot decisions, meaning that it was clear for everyone who was able to do decisions regarding any changes, any alterations that needed to happen if there was something unexpected happening. We had eyes on site, we had a lot of security cameras around the venue, and we had also our organizing team that made a routine checks around the area so that if there is something happening, we knew about it and we could react. We had eyes on the bridge, so we know if they were jumping, and if they weren't, we could push them to start doing actions what we wanted them to do. We had very comprehensive plans to steer towards. We knew where the LARP was going and what needed to happen in order for us to get there. We had also plenty of ways to communicate to the players. We had a communication software where the players could talk to the fleet commander, to their ship's AI, directly to the GMs during a chat windows. We had friendly text NPCs in other ships in the fleet that could give information and steer the play with the things they said for their connections. And we had also some live NPC characters we could use to influence players and what we wanted them to do and where we wanted them to go. We had also a couple of catch-ups mechanics for the schedule. The jump sequence was pretty strict, meaning that we needed to keep up with that to have the LARP on schedule at all times. But we could do the rushed jumps, so if we were if we were getting behind on the schedule, we could force the players with lots of enemies to do a rushed jump, meaning that we could take a little bit of time back. And then there were 2 occasions in the LARP where the players would make a double jump, so they could bypass the jump cooldown and do 2 jumps in right after another, and this also allowed us to catch up the schedule, since the second one of these was happening in the last day of the LARP. So whatever time we were behind at that stage, we could catch up the schedule during that double jump in the last day. We also had clear and extensive guides for different actions, puzzles, land missions, jump sequence, and we are looking a little bit of those later on. We created the role of a runtime coordinator for 2024 runs. We essentially had me and Sanna doing this role already in 2019, but it was not as clearly defined. It was more of something that organically appeared, which we realized that we need to have this kind of person, and this is the description we had in our internal communication regarding the role. The runtime coordinator is in charge of everything game-related. They will make sure that all other teams know what is happening and coordinate in-game events. For example, jumps, boardings, attacks, land missions, etc. There are always 2 runtime coordinators on duty, and at least one of them can always be found in the command center. Runtime coordinators know what is currently happening in the game, what will happen next, and also in the larger scale where things are going, so that any needed preparations can be started well in advance. They are in charge of making executive decisions on skipping events, making changes for the plans based on things that are happening, and they know the implications of these changes to the story and overall experience. They are able to answer all schedule and story-related questions, and any issues and change requests should be presented to them. So this was the role that essentially made sure that the LARP was kept on schedule and that everybody else on site knew what was happening and why. These are a few slides from our onboarding slide set for our on-site workforce. This is our runtime organization chart, so who is answering who, essentially. We had producers on top, we had HR and documentation, player safety, player coordination, and kitchen as their own blobs, and then we had the runtime coordinators, and everyone else during the runtime was answering to them. We had a text NPC team, we had an empty epsilon team, we had photographers, live NPC coordinators and live NPC team, we had a land mission coordinator, we had a prop lead and the prop team, we had some runners, tech support, SFX lead, and under the tech support were all of our sound, light, IT, everything that could break during the game. All right, let's go through some case examples of different kinds of tasks and events we had, which needed to be, which were pretty time efficient and needed to be coordinated. The first one is a jump. I will show you our instructions for the jump for our backstage crew, but I won't go then through in too much detail, because in the end we are looking for a video that where you can see these in action. We had a list we were following, and there were a bunch of tasks that we needed to follow before the jump to make sure that we were going in the right direction. We needed to check that engineers had finished the previous jumps cooldown tasks. Needed to, if the players didn't communicate with the larger fleet, we needed to use our text NPCs to communicate the players that where are we going, do we have coordinates. This is also how we were keeping up how far the players were or how close they were to knowing what they needed to know. Need to let a land mission, SFX and photography teams know about this jump if there would be something happening in the next jump where they would be needed. We send players warnings when there would be enemies incoming, so that the players could start preparing, putting fighters in the air and issuing everybody who needed to be on the bridge. So these needed to start happening about 25 minutes before we wanted the players to jump. Spawn enemies in the empty epsilon, and then wait for the jump coordinates, check that the coordinates were correct, inform the empty epsilon operator about the coordinates, because there were, in some cases, there were different options where the players could jump, and depending on where they were jumping, there were different scenarios to be loaded. approve or reject the jump. If the players were going in the wrong direction, then reject it. We need to choose the mood for the next jump, and then check that the engineers were able to complete the pre-jump tasks. And then we waited for the players to actually initiate the jump. And then this is the phase that happened during the jump, and this is the part which you will be seeing on the video at the end. So I won't go through this because we will see it a bit later. Then this is a picture of the board we had on our command center. In this board, we had a post-it note for all major events that were going to happen during each of the jump. But in addition to this post-it board, we had an Excel with quite a bit of more information. We had most notable events which were happening throughout the LARP. We had the exact time of the event within 15-minute interval, so everything that happened in the LARP was scheduled within a 15-minute breaks. So we knew exactly when things were supposed to start happening. We had the shift information, we had jump details, so the number of the jump as well as the approved coordinates, so that the runtime coordinators knew if they needed to accept or reject each different jump. We had the combat information, what kind of enemies there would be coming and when they would be coming. We had fleet events, if there would be some ships would be destroyed, if there were some big news or some other notable events. We had live NPC schedule, when all the live NPCs would be needed, how long of time and how many. We had instructions for empty epsilon players regarding the events, so when they would need to spawn the enemies, what kind of enemies, and what they were supposed to do with them. And we had our radio broadcast times, along with a lot of other information regarding the events that were happening. And this Excel was done for the entire 50-hour duration of the LARP in 15-minute intervals. And we managed to keep the LARP on schedule in 6 consecutive runs. Land missions. During the LARP, we had 9 land missions where we sent our players. 3 of them were just pickups, where they were picking up another players from other locations, and 6 of them were missions where there were some action happening during the mission. This is a slide with a lot of text, but I will read some of it to you. So we had a land mission coordinator, and then we had a runtime coordinator who needed to be communicating with each other in order to make sure that the land mission was happening the way it had planned and everything would be considered. So to begin with, there needed to be the checking the status of the schedule from runtime coordinator by the land mission coordinator. And then checking the NPC status with the live NPC coordinator, that the NPCs were ready and briefed. Coordinate the land mission site props with the prop team. In all of the land missions, there were a bunch of props that needed to be delivered to the location for the players to be found. Check that there were transportation for players, props, photographers, and NPCs. Check that players have all relevant information and are getting ready. Sometimes we were closing in on a jump, and then there were Marines sitting on a bar, and then someone needed to give a gentle nod that there is going to be a mission soon. You might want to start getting prepped for that. Coordinate with SFX makeup if that was needed during that mission. When they were left from the location to track both the NPCs and players to know that the NPCs were far enough in advance before the players to be ready, and where the players were moving. Coordinate with the runtime coordinator about the mission start time. Do the streaming setup for the land mission site. Do the streaming setup in the Odysseus site. Then track the land mission schedule and progress. Close the beacon location, tracking once it was retrieved. Inform that the mission completion and estimated return time, and do all the end of the stream steps. And when the players were getting back, inform our SFX about returning Marines and estimated injuries, so our prop team could prepare some gunshot wounds or whatever was necessary for that batch of Marines. And finally, land mission gear checkup and streaming gear recharging after the mission end. And there were these missions in every 6 hours during the 50-hour duration of the LARP. So this kept repeating 6 times throughout the runtime, also during night times. Then we had some boardings, and they required even more time-sensitive coordination. We had one person with the NPCs who were about to do the boarding, and then another in a command center communicating with the radio for the exact timings. And the preparations for boardings began already way before the actual boarding, with briefing of the NPCs, checking that the NPCs were getting ready, that they were getting on costumes. The machine costumes took maybe 15-20 minutes to get fully on, so they needed a warning in advance when they were needed. Do all the enemy approach steps, incoming jump warnings, and creating the enemies in the empty epsilon, and also coordinate with the empty epsilon player so that they could create an indestructible enemy ship that would approach to Odysseus, so that they would get close enough and the players wouldn't accidentally shoot it too early. We had some special effects. Smoke machine needed to be put into the warming about 15 minutes before the use. And while it was warming up, we had the final briefing with the NPCs. And then when the event itself began, we had the radio communication between the command center and the boarding location. The command center informed about the approaching enemy. We were launching the boarding event soundtrack, which gave the soundscape for the boarding. There was some ship-wide announcements, sound and light tracks, and NPCs got on their places. We started the smoke creation, then we launched the second boarding track, and the NPCs waited for the sound signal for the explosion, for breaking the wall before entering the ship. Then we would wait for the event to play out and at the end launch the end boarding event signal from the back end that would make the soundscape and lights get back to normal. And then we would clean up all the ammo and fix the broken wall to continue as usual. All right, let's look some video clips. The first one is about the jump. This is late night jump preparation from our command center.
Close. They are off. State synchronization disabled. Loading support moment. Checking statuses. Only one fighter is functional. Okay, good, just a moment.
Yeah. And then, yeah, there's planet.
And fleet B,
Without karma.
without karma, B, this is the fleet B,
Yeah.
and I will unpause to the stage number before,
Yes.
and I will actually move Odysseus a bit
Yeah.
further away.
Yep.
And as this was so damn messed up,
Yeah, they are like all over the place. And we can start doing the sync.
yes,
Yes.
you can push.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting some more.
I've started using those for some time.
Excellent.
Okay, push complete.
Push complete. Check the status.
Went through, Odysseus 18 is, Fighter 18 is only functional one.
Okay.
Okay, break launch spiders.
Done.
Okay. State synchronization enabled.
Yes.
Any destroyed ships to be removed?
No.
Okay. The braking type that we want.
Let's have minor braking.
Okay, minor braking it is.
Yes.
Now the list has been edited so much that I can't really quickly anymore. Where are we? Okay. Ending jump in
Not yet.
in 4 minutes.
4.5 minutes. Then we are on schedule that the land mission is starting on 15 to 1.
Nice.
Yes.
And that is what most of our jumps, there were some more chaotic ones and then there were some more controlled ones. This seemed to be pretty late at night because it was the jump after midnight, so there was not that many people in the command center, but during every jump that the players did on the LARP, we had this checklist going through and making these steps one by one in order to get things moving. The next video I have is from the end of the run 2 in 2024, which was a run that came pretty close for everybody dying, and this is a little bit more chaotic. There are a bit more people on the command center, and you can hear a communication between myself from the hangar and people in the command center looking at what's going on.
Aware that they were shooting inside the star cooler, one firing down.
Signal down, officer box on the car cooler. What's the situation?
What is going on?
Should the ending music start at some point? Ask about the ending music because it's a long track.
Ask about the ending. We want to see about the ending today.
I will tell you, we are seeing what's happening here.
We're done. That's the place for music.
Can command center here.
Yes.
Alright, do not destroy this and play the smoking sound in the hangar.
Do I play the talking sound now?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not in the text, but you can hear me say, "Do not destroy Odysseus." Yeah, thank you. We have a couple minutes if you have any questions, and also feel free to find me if you want to chat or have any further questions after this one. There is at least one question in the back.
Did you miss any
gameplay in some way that it was that you have to improvise around?
No, the closest is that we did miss one jump in the 2019 run when we were looking for the lost player in the forest, meaning that because the player had the beacon, which the scientist needed to solve the puzzle and find the next coordinates, so the players were unable to know where to go. So I made an executive decision that we are prolonging the jump until the situation is solved. The game continued for everybody else in the ship. They just weren't jumping when they were supposed to, and then we extended the range and allowed them to do a double length jump in order to catch up the schedule which we needed to have to get them back on schedule.
For the 2019 game, were there other alternative versions of the clockwork you were thinking about but didn't then do?
We had, because in 2019 we didn't know how things would be going. We had a little bit more learning experience with every run where the game was heading. We had an idea what kind of story we wanted to tell and where we wanted to go, but basically we already in 2019 ended up doing pretty much the schedule as it was planned, and there was no major changes. There were a few things that we decided on the fly when players came to ask that what happens when this thing comes in the LARP, and then we hadn't thought about it in advance, one of them being what happened to the androids when the big machine was destroyed, and we made an executive decision during the LARP that all the androids on the ship will die as well. And that was not something we had decided beforehand, but what we decided during the runtime with a group of writers when players came to ask us what would happen. All right, thank you everyone.